All right, everybody, we're doing another head coaching candidate profile here. It is Mike Macdonald, and I'll tell you this right now. I think that in a majority of the fan base, there is a significant interest in seeing an offensive coach take over because we've had a defensive coach for so long, almost a decade and a half, because the trend of the league right now is leaning towards offense over defense, because pretty much all of the recent Super Bowl teams have been coached by offensive guys, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is an offensive league right now. And I think that most people who comment on my videos, who watch my videos, who watch any videos of any kind about the Seattle Seahawks, who are invested in any way, one way or the other, with this new head coach, want it to be an offensive guy. And most of the really good candidates are offensive guys. So that makes sense. I'm not against it at all. In fact, I'm pretty much for it. But if the Seahawks decide to go the defensive route, this is a guy who I think almost all of those guys would be cool with. They would not gripe and moan about how, oh, we got a defensive guy. This isn't good because I wanted an offensive guy. For some guys, yeah, that would definitely come into play, but not for this guy. Mike Macdonald is different. Mike Macdonald is special. Mike Macdonald is young. He's done fantastic work so far in his career. He's got a great resume thus far. He's another one of these coaches still in the playoffs right now. May end up winning it all this year to when he leaves to go to take his head coaching job. And if we ended up with Mike Macdonald, I think there would be very little concern. There would be very little people complaining. There would be very, very little other than just, all right, we have a guy. This is another guy who, if you get him and he's good, you're good for a long time, 25 years maybe. I don't know if it actually would be 25 years, but you would be good for a long time because he's so young. You could grow old with him the same way the Rams might grow old with Sean McVay, or the Niners could grow old with Kyle Shanahan. This guy is basically Ben Johnson, but for the defensive side of the ball. I think there are actually a lot of really good parallels there, to be perfectly honest. So I'm going to say this right now. If the Seahawks come away from this offseason with Mike Macdonald as their new head coach, I'm excited. And even to those of you out there who are definitely on team, I want an offensive coach, I think you should be excited too. This guy's different. This guy is built different than the other defensive candidates. Put this guy, for me, I'm just going to say it right now. We're going to look at the resume here, but put this guy in the top 3 for me. So 37 years old when the season starts next year. I think he's 36 right now. He's been a defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens for the last 2 years. And the 1 year that he was not there, 2021, because he's been in Baltimore basically his whole career, the 1 year he was not there, the Ravens defense was actually bad, below average to bad. So keep that in mind as we move forward here. He took over a defense that was pretty bad in 2021. So 2023, this current year, they have the number 1 defense in the league in points allowed, 16.5 points a game, and negative .127 EPA, which is second only to the Cleveland Browns. So that is the elite of the elite of the elite on defense. And he's doing it with good players, some good players, but he doesn't have a TJ Watt. He doesn't have a Myles Garrett. He doesn't have a Micah Parsons. He's making this work with guys like Jadeveon Clowney at edge rusher. He's doing an amazing job with not a heck of a lot that you would say is like super blue chippers. They have good players, of course. I'm not pretending otherwise. But the fact that they're doing this without a guy that you would point to as being an obvious defensive player of the year candidate is very impressive. 2022, which was the first year he was their defensive coordinator, he did great too. Third in the league in points allowed, 18.5. And they were just average or slightly above average according to EPA, negative 0.002, 14th, which, okay, that's a little bit concerning. But overall, his body of work in Baltimore has been stellar, has been really, really something else. And this is basically what he has built his current reputation on. The fact that he is doing this much good without having super duper stars in Baltimore in the places you would expect to find them. Now, I said earlier that he spent 1 year outside the Baltimore Ravens organization, and he did. 2021, he was the defensive coordinator for the Michigan Wolverines. Now, keep this in mind. When he was gone from Baltimore, they were actually bad. Now, I'm not saying that they were bad just because they lost him, but when you take a look at what Baltimore was doing in the prior years when he was there, it's at least notable. By the way, when he went to Michigan for 1 year to be their defensive coordinator in 2021, they had an elite defense, 17.4 points per game allowed, eighth in the league. Now, he had blue chippers there for sure. Guys like Aiden Hutchinson were there. He had, Mozzie Smith there. He had even Rod Moore. I know he's not a super blue chipper, but he's a really good safety. They had a bunch of pieces on that defense that were really, really good, but he did great work with them under Harbaugh. So, yeah, great work so far from Mike Macdonald. This is a pretty impeccable resume so far. And to go further back in time, we go back to his basically career start where he was doing positional stuff for the Ravens. So he spent 3 years as a linebacker coach from 2018 to 2020. All 3 years, the Ravens defense was elite, second in points allowed, third in points allowed, second and third points allowed, sixth in EPA, fourth in EPA, fourth in EPA. So the linebackers, I mean, it's a who's who of, well, I don't want to say the most notable linebackers, but some pretty notable linebackers of that era. You had Patrick Queen, who was their first round pick in 2020. Matt Judon, who would go on to sign a big free agent contract with the Patriots and become, he was already a good player, but he became even a little more prolific there. Pernell McPhee was there for a little bit. They had Patrick Onwuasor, I think is how you pronounce it. C.J. Mosley was there for a little bit. Zadarius Smith was there that first year. Terrell Suggs was there that first year. So he's worked with a lot of really notable linebackers. You could give him some credit for pushing Patrick Queen's career in the right direction. Matt Judon definitely owes a lot of what he is right now to Macdonald. So this is a pretty impressive resume to me. Still, linebacker work was nice. The year before that, he was their defensive back coach, 2017. That year, the Ravens defense was really good again. 19 points per game, a little bit less, and third in EPA, negative .113. And some of the defensive backs he had on that team, Tony Jefferson, I remember him. He was somebody that he really helped develop. That was, I think, the year he was 25 or something. He also had a lot of veterans, Eric Weddle, Brandon Carr, Jimmy Smith, I think, was a veteran at that point. He also had Marlon Humphrey before he really became a superstar, but when he was progressing. Old man Eric Weddle, one of my favorites. Always one of my favorites. So, pretty good resume here. And if you step back a little bit further to 2015 to 2016, he was a defensive assistant. Who knows what that means? Again, I'm not going to pretend like I know what that means. All I can do is say the Ravens defense was really bad in 2015, 25 points a game, a positive .048 EPA. And then in 2016, his second year as defensive assistant, they were good. Top 10 in points, top 8 in EPA, 21.4 points, negative .036 EPA. So, I mean, I guess he's doing something right, or he's connected to something that is right? Because every year he's here pretty much, the defense in Baltimore is really, really good, if not elite. So, you had one more year dangling here. He was a coaching intern in 2014. The defense was good, 10th in EPA, 6th in points per game. I'm not really going to say that means very much, but the body of work he had in Baltimore before he got the defensive coordinator job is about as good as it gets for a positional guy. I can't say too much else about this guy. So that is what he did in Baltimore. There is one more part of his resume I want to look at real quick here. He was the defensive quality control assistant in Georgia for the Bulldogs for 3 years. The first 2 years, they were really good. 23rd in points allowed, 18th in points allowed, 20.6, 19.6. And then the last year, the bottom fell out, 2013, 80th in the league, 29 points a game. Again, I don't know what I can read into that, right? Who knows what a defensive quality control assistant is? Maybe they're just in charge of quality control on the Gatorade. Like, who knows what they're doing back there? But if you take a look at the way his career has progressed, it's honestly, if you're being straight objective, it's even more promising and more inspiring and more impressive than Ben Johnson. The difference is Ben Johnson is offense and Mike Macdonald is defense, but Mike Macdonald has basically done everything you could ask for and been part of so much great stuff that it's probably a little bit more impressive. So that is the Mike Macdonald rundown. I would love to bring Mike Macdonald in as the next head coach. We need to improve this defense desperately. If he came in, maybe we would be able to keep a lot of the stuff on offense together, like Waldron, and just bet on continuity to carry the day, which I think is a reasonable bet. We had a decent offense last year with all the injuries to the offensive line and with all the deficiencies on the offensive line. If we want to roll forward with the crew that we had last year, I don't mind that. Mike Macdonald might just be like, sure, go ahead, do whatever you want. I want to control my defense. I'm worried about that. So that's another potential benefit. I know a lot of you guys would not consider that to be a benefit. I would. I like continuity, unless I think the pieces are just bad. I don't believe the pieces on our offense are bad, and I think Mike Macdonald might come in here and be like, yeah, I think the pieces on this offense are salvageable. So that would make things a little bit easier. Maybe a little bit of a lower ceiling, but definitely a higher floor. And what he's done with defenses without elite talent, by the way, again, I want to stress this. This current Ravens team does not have some superstar edge rusher making life easy for him. It has great players, of course, but it's not, he's not dealing with a bunch of all pros the way San Francisco is. So yeah, he's got to be a top 3 candidate. If you could give me my pick of any head coach out there, I think Mike Macdonald has to be in the top 3. So, yeah, I love him. I think you guys should love him too. If this is the hire, count me as the people who are very optimistic and hopeful and excited about this. All right, I'm going to get out of here. More videos coming later. Peace out. Go Hawks. Mike Macdonald, love him. Would be an awesome head coaching candidate for the Seahawks.